students, today as you can see here, I'm going to present a demonstration about a urine test, okay, for our chapter of excretory system. Okay, so before anything else, let me tell you first the aim of our demonstration. So at this experiment, we are going to identify the physical and chemical characteristics of the urine, and we are going to check the qualitative test for the presence of protein, glucose, and chlorine. Okay, so first let us see with the tools and materials that we are going to use. So here I have the test tubes. Okay, we have prepared 8 test tubes to conduct this experiment. There is the test tube racks, and then we have the measuring cylinder to measure the amount of urine that we are going to use. We have this beaker. And then of course, it is contained with the urine samples, both X and Y. So we have 2 urine samples that we are going to test. And then we also have some reagents that we are going to use. This one is copper sulfate with the sodium hydroxide, which will be combined to form the burette reagent. And then we also have the silver nitrate to conduct for the chlorine test. And the last one, we have the Benedict for the glucose test. Yeah, that's the chemical characteristics that we are going to check. The other one, we also will conduct the physical characteristics, which we are going to see the color of the urine, okay? And also we are going to smell the odor, and we are going to check the pH using this pH paper. Okay, and the rest of the materials that will support this, of course, we need the pipettes, we need the test tube holder, we need the match, yeah, and I think that's all. Okay, so let's start. The first step is to check the physical properties, which is the color and the odor. Now, as you can see here, I have 2 samples of urine labeled with X and Y. So I have already labeled it, so we will not get confused later which one is the X and Y. First, let's compare the color. For the X sample here, we can see that the color of the urine, it is quite transparent, okay, and it is yellowish in color. So as we can see, this is the normal range of the color, because the urine has pale color to yellowish color, which indicate the normal one. Okay, and the other one, also the Y. Okay, more or less the color is just the same with the transparent look and also the pale yellowish color. Okay, and then the odor. Make sure when we are going to test for the odor, we will not sniff the samples directly to our nose, because it will be dangerous and you might be intoxicated if it's if the substance is not safe. So what should we do is that we are going to sniff the smell in and swath like the air into our nose, so like this. Okay, that's for the X1. So the smells is like there's a scent of ammonia there, as we can see that that is part of the urine, but there is no like sweet or fruity smells that much. A little bit there is, but not that strong. Okay, and then for the Y1, let us see. Okay. Okay, I can smell the ammonia as well, but it is not that sweet compared to the X1. Okay, so that's the color and odor of the 2 samples that we have. Okay, so the odor of the urine and the color also might vary among people. Okay, so you need to find out what is the reasons behind when you are going to answer the test paper later in your lab worksheets. Okay, so I'll put it aside. Next, before we we continue with the other one, don't forget to compare the results. Okay, earlier maybe I will just put it right here so you can see the urine color chart behind me, yeah, at the right side, and then you can check whether this urine color shows the person is well hydrated or not. So there is the range that you can compare from the very good characteristics until the severe dehydrated. Okay, so try to compare and check the color chart here for the X1. And and then write down your results and your observation in the paper. Then repeat the step for the sample Y here. Okay. Next, the label, we are going to label the test tubes. As you can see here, I have already labeled the test tubes well, so that it will be easier for you to observe and compare later. I label it as X and Y. So the X test tubes will be used to test the X sample, and Y will be used to check or to test the Y sample. Okay, students, now we are going to continue with the other physical property test, which is the pH test. So here I have the pH paper and the indicator that we are going to use. Okay, take sample of the take the pH paper out, and then we can just directly dip into the urine sample. So this is the X1, so just dip it enough like this. And then take it out, let it dry for some seconds. I'll just put it here and do the same with the sample Y. Okay, so let it dry, and then we will see the pH range later by using this indicator. Okay, let's continue. While waiting for it to dry, let's continue with the other chemical test. The first one is the chlorine test. So for the chlorine test, we are going to use the reagent sulfur nitrate here. Okay, so we are going to mix the urine sample with the sulfur nitrate, and we are going to observe the color changes and if there is a precipitation in the urine sample. Okay, let's do with the X1 first. So take enough urine sample, like 2 milliliters, using the measuring cylinder. Okay, and then transfer it to the X test tube. Make sure that the test tube is clean and dry to prevent from any contaminants that might affect the result. Alright, and then this is the reagent. Let's take 5 drops of this using a pipette. Also, use a clean and dry pipette before you're going to take the reagent, and do not mix to prevent any contamination from one reagent to another. So this like 5 drops will be enough. Okay, and then mix well. Alright, we will see the results later. We are going to put it for a few minutes to see if there is precipitation. Okay, just repeat the same procedure for the sample Y. Alright, so that's the chlorine test. We are going to see the results after. Next, let's conduct the other chemical test, which is the protein test. For the protein test, we are going to use the burette reagent. Okay, so in this case, we are going to mix the copper sulfate and the sodium hydroxide. So the first step, just the same with the previous one. Let's get the sample of the urine X. 2 milliliters of the sample. And transfer it to the test tube. And then this one, just put it here. Don't forget to close the cap to prevent any unwanted accident. Okay, so this is the copper sulfate. Use the new pipette to get the samples of the reagents. Okay, just get a few drops of this. 5 drops will be enough. Okay. Also mix it with the sodium hydroxide. To slide it a little bit. Mix well. Okay, so we'll compare later. Let's put it down first. And do the same for the sample Y. Let me close this. Okay, now we can directly compare the results of the protein test of the two samples. So either I hold the X sample in my right hand and the Y sample in my left hand. As we can see that the color, it's like still bluish, yeah, just like the reagent that we made, the urine one, which indicate that for the X1, which indicate that there is no protein there is no protein that can be found in the urine sample. So the positive result will show the color, the purple color, like that for the positive one. And as we can see, the same with the Y sample. So both samples that we have seen, that we have observed, there is no presence of protein in both samples. So you can see the color range here, and let's compare the results. Okay. All right. Next is let's conduct the glucose test. Okay. For the glucose test, we are going to use the Benedict reagent. Okay, and the steps is more or less like the previous one. So let's get the sample of sample X and 2 milliliters of it. And then transfer it into the clean test tube. Okay. And then add 5 drops of the Benedict solution. There's a dropper here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. You need to observe the color before we heat it using the spiritus burner. At the beginning, the color is like bluish, just like the color of the reagent. Now, let's heat it, okay, to see the color changes for the sample X. So, use the test tube clamp, and then we can directly heat this, but make sure that it is not too long exposed to the fire, and make sure you put like few centimeter distance. So we are going to observe the color changes. We need to boil this for quite some time, so be patient. Okay. As you can see, there's bubbles, means that the sample has boiled. Okay, and then put it for some minutes here. Be careful not to touch because it is hot. Okay, let's repeat the procedure for the sample Y. Okay, just heat it enough. Okay, as you can see, there's bubbles already, so enough. Let's put it here. All right. Okay, so let's go back with the pH test first because it has dried. Let's see the pH range of the samples. This is the sample X. Okay, let's compare. Let's see the pH range using the pH indicator here. So if we compare, okay, yeah, you can see that this is 6. Okay, the pH is 6 according to the pH indicator for the sample X. Takes note of it. And then for the sample Y, okay, it is about 5, so the color is about a little bit different. Okay, 5 and 6. 5 for sample Y and 6 for sample X. Okay, as we have observed that the pH value for the sample X and Y is about 5 and 6, which means that these ranges of pH shows the normal urine, because the ranges of the normal urine is about 4.8 to 8 pH, like that. Okay, so let's see for our maybe the chlorine test that we have conducted earlier. Okay, if we get to see closer, this is the sample, sorry, I put it here first, the sample X. We can see a little bit precipitation in the sample, okay, and the color changes into like milky or whitish in color, which means that this is normal to be found in the normal urine, because as we know that the chlorine might be present in our urine as well. Okay, with the sample Y, okay, there is a little bit precipitation as well, so, and the color also whitish and milky, meaning this is also normal. What makes it abnormal is that if the precipitation is quite a lot, okay, and however we won't be able to identify the amount in this particular test, because we are just checking for the qualitative results, not the quantitative one. Okay, and then for the glucose test, let's see, I think it's already called. This is the sample Y, this is the, okay, this is X and this is Y. Okay, take a look carefully. So this is the sample X. Okay, you can compare the color with the chart here of the glucose Benedict test. You can see if it is like greenish, okay, like green or like this, not so dark in color, this is still indicate the normal urine with the right amount of glucose, not that much, okay, for the sample X. And for the sample Y, you can see that it is slightly brownish, so it might indicate the little bit presence of glucose, and the person might be at the risk of having diabetic, okay, or diabetes. So take note of the results. That's for the sample Y. Okay, so for the protein, we have seen it earlier, just for one time to compare. Sorry, I switched this. X and Y. Okay, and I think that's all. We have conducted the pH, odor and smell for the physical properties one, and then we have also checked or test for the presence of glucose, chlorine, and also the protein. Okay, make sure that you take down notes of the results, okay, and try to analyze what is the reasons behind the results, okay, whether it is normal or not, and if it is not, then give your reasons why. Okay, so these physical and chemical properties that we conducted today is only to check the qualitative results, not the quantitative one, because we don't have the materials to have the quantitative test for this. Alright, so I think that's all for today's demonstration. Don't forget to fill in your lab worksheets and answer the questions there. And I think that's all. So have a nice day. Thank you for watching.